We're a little over a month into the NBA season now, and while I like to be a positive guy, like I try and talk about the good things about the NBA primarily, ultimately, what I care about most is seeing ways for teams and players to get better, and the only way to do that is by acknowledging their flaws. So in today's video, I wanted to go through every NBA team, point out their biggest weakness, and how they could possibly go about addressing it. What I will not be including in this video is health issues. Obviously, there are some teams who are riddled with injuries, and that's ultimately their biggest problem, but that's not really that fun or original to discuss or point out. It's not particularly insightful, so we will be leaving that out of the discussion. Also, not every one of these issues has a concrete solution, so don't always expect one. A lot of the time, especially when we're this early into the season, the answer is just wait and see and hope things improve. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. This message is sponsored by RAYCON. Keep your ears open and your playlists going with RAYCON's Essential Open Earbuds. These open ear earbuds let you stay connected to your surroundings while enjoying your favorite music, podcasts, or calls. Perfect for a jog, commute, or even some basketball. Black Friday is around the corner, and RAYCON audio products are up to 30% off site-wide, from everyday essentials to the latest releases. It's the perfect time to upgrade your sound or get ahead of gifting. These early deals won't last long. Shop now before they're gone. Just click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/AlsoRustyOpen to save on RAYCON audio products site-wide. I've been using RAYCONs for years now, and they have never let me down, and these new Essential Open earbuds might be my favorite to date. RAYCON delivers the same premium audio quality as the big brands, but at half of the price. Add in over 3 million happy customers and a 30-day happiness guarantee, and there is just zero reason to overpay. Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/AlsoRustyOpen to get up to 30% off during RAYCON's Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale. That's buyraycon.com/AlsoRustyOpen. Thank you to RAYCON for sponsoring this video. Starting with the Eastern Conference for the Atlanta Hawks, they are better without Trae Young so far. Now, this could be argued to actually be a positive, as you could just trade Trae Young to build upon this really good foundation without him, but at least in the moment, it does create this weird disconnect, and Trae Young will be coming back, so if they are indeed clearly worse with him, then his trade value is going to go into the mud. You could argue it is already heading in that direction at this point because of how good Atlanta's been without him on both ends of the floor, especially when you consider the fact that he is on a one-year deal with a player option. It makes his trade value already not that great. Now, it could be that he just ends up taking that player option at this point. If his overall value is down, you could talk yourself into that if you're trading for him, but also if you're trading for Trae Young, are you doing so with the idea that he would underperform to where he needs to take a $48 million player option? I don't know. It's kind of a weird crossroads. The Hawks have been fun without Trae. Like, I've kind of enjoyed the Hawks more without him, so I don't know. The solution, of course, we're going to have to wait and see. I don't know, weird balancing act with that team thus far. For the Boston Celtics, their center rotation is kind of whack. Don't get me wrong, it's fine for this year, but this offseason, landing a real starting center is the top priority as they have lost both Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford this offseason. Between Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Anthony Simons, and potentially Hugo Gonzalez, they have enough point guard play. I actually feel very good about the future of their guards. And obviously, with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they have their wings well established. But their starting center, Keita, he's fine. He's fine. He's really just a good backup, and he's starting, so his numbers look better. I don't really think he's a starting center, though. And Luka Garza isn't the worst backup center in the league, but he's not really nearly that good neither. So I think they can do a lot better. The solution is either going to be signing or trading for a center this offseason. Probably will have to be a trade because when you look at the available free agents at the center position for this upcoming offseason, not very good. There's only really one guy who I would be like, yeah, go for him, and that's Mitchell Robinson. After that, you have like DeAndre Ayton and Nikola Vucevic. Vucevic would make the offense work better just because they obviously had a floor spacing 5 at their absolute best because both Al Horford and Porzingis could shoot threes. But defensively, I don't think they want that, nor do I think they should really invest in somebody that old. So I don't know. They're at a very weird place with that position. For the Brooklyn Nets, I'm going to go with lead guard play. Cam Thomas can find his own shot. He's quite good at that. He doesn't see a shot that he doesn't like, but he doesn't really set up his teammates, especially for how much he dribbles. And as of now, their rookie point guards have been kind of eh. Yegor Dioman has been all right. He's a damn 6'9" point guard. However, the only thing that he's really done at an elite level in the NBA to this point has been three-point shooting. So he's an interesting prospect. I'm not saying you don't continue to give that guy opportunity, but I do think in the long run here, playmaking will be the biggest focus, at least for their offseason. Nicholas Claxton and Michael Porter Jr. have, weirdly enough, actually picked up the slack in that department, which is a nice development for them. Like, I like to see these guys increase their playmaking ability, but they're mostly ideally play finishers, and you're putting them in the position of like needing to expand this stuff in their game, which works right now because there's no expectation of winning. I don't know how well that will actually hold up in the long run, especially if you are keeping these guys on the team in the long run. Solution? Well, for a rebuilding team, it is the draft. That's always going to be the answer for a team in this position. I don't really think they have the assets nor the willingness to trade for a player, nor would there be that many guards in free agency who would either want to be on the Nets or would be good enough. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, the offense just so heavily devolves whenever Darius Garland is not available. And to me, I mean, obviously that's their biggest issue. That's the point of this video, but I think it is the defining issue for this Cavs team for their potential future, because Darius Garland has proven to be an injury-prone player to this point, and if they cannot be a good-ass offense without him, that really caps their ceiling. They are leaning heavily on Donovan Mitchell, just doing all of the shot creation, hunting for his own shots when Darius is not there, as well as Evan Mobley a little bit doing some more self-shot creation, which has not gone well. Mitchell is cooking so far this year, but that is in place of an offensive system that last year was so goddamn effective. And just seeing it devolve into like, okay, Mitchell is going to run up the court and create some shit out of nothing, it's just really upsetting, because last year the Cavs were one of the most fun teams to watch in the league to me. This year they've been banking on Craig Porter Jr. and Lonzo Ball to pick up that stuff, but neither of them really have the scoring gravity nor the incredible handle of Darius Garland. So it's not really working. The solution would be either trading for a better playmaker to come off of the bench or be good enough to potentially start, or you let Lonzo slowly get better. He's been better with his own shooting lately. So, you know, if the three ball is real for him, which overall for the season it has not been, that overall does increase his value significantly. But even still, I just don't think you're going to get the same level of playmaking impact because he's not that big of a threat driving to the basket, especially not the way that Garland is. Do not let Darius Garland's absence be an excuse to just have Donovan Mitchell carry. Like, I understand that is the easy option, but you're abandoning the system that made them so good last year in the first place when you do that. And I think they should try to learn how to run that system without Garland, as opposed to saying he's not here, fuck it, we're doing something completely different. That's why I've been saying for a minute now that, like, Donovan Mitchell might be better than Darius Garland, but Darius is kind of the most important player for that team working at its absolute max potential. For the Chicago Bulls, I mean, it's defense, but that's also kind of general. What is more important for what this team is at least supposed to be good at is half-court self-creation. The Bulls and Josh Giddey were kind of fast break merchants early into the season, but their fast breaks have been less and less frequent, and their half-court offense has been pretty mediocre to sometimes even really awful. It was goddamn terrible in their blowout loss to the Miami Heat the other day. There's just no one on this team who's that great of a self-creator. Kobe White is by far and away the best at that, and he has been killing it so far in the limited sample we've seen from him, but it's in a way that interrupts the flow of the offense a bit, so like they're not really striking that balance of him being able to create shots while the overall system still works. Vucevic can post up a little bit. Giddey can still sometimes create a bit in the half court, even if it's really herky-jerky and awkward. But most of their offense relies on cutting, shooting, and either of their starting guards, whether it is Giddey or Trey Jones, getting downhill. It works sometimes, but nobody here is really enough of a creator to leverage any kind of scoring gravity to actually have a great half-court offense. So as for the solution, I don't know if there is one other than more Kobe White and less Trey Jones, and the development of Manas Buzelis, who is getting better, but it's not exactly happening overnight. But I don't know. I'm a little worried that the Bulls just had a really hot start to the season, and like I like to say about the Bulls, I'm incapable of being rational about them. So I'm hitting the panic button, even though I probably shouldn't. For the Charlotte Hornets, everything revolves around LaMelo Ball, and it really just shouldn't anymore. The reports of LaMelo himself wanting out appear to be fake. At the very least, that is the story that he is spinning in the public. But the Hornets themselves should absolutely be ready to move on. Con Knipple has been a revelation. He has all-star upside. Sion James and Ryan Kalkbrenner are also really, really solid rookies, like home runs in this draft for them for real. And Brandon Miller has been injury prone so far as well, but at the very least, he does not have like a goddamn 5 or 6 year track record at this point from LaMelo, like missing more than half of the games that he's possibly could have in his career at this point. He's made of glass. And at this point, like, we're waiting for the time where he gets healthy. It's just not going to. At this point, he's just not going to be healthy. So I think you just move on from LaMelo. You let the young guys, and this is a team with a lot of really good young guys, you let them define the future, because I just don't think LaMelo is going to be it. So the solution, yeah, just let that era end. Please, you can get back something of substance, add that into your pile of young guys, go into this upcoming draft, potentially get a top pick. And if you have a top 3 guy from this draft on this team with all of these really good young players already, you are in a very, very, very good position. And I just think LaMelo at this point is dead weight. For the Detroit Pistons, this is a classic answer. I talked about this in my Pistons video on this channel that nobody watched, but scoring and shot creation outside of Cade is their biggest weakness. Jaden Ivey did just come back, so we will see with him. He actually was pretty good in his first game, but I just don't think that he'll be enough in that category. It makes the situation better, but I don't think it solves it. Cade just has way too much responsibility on the offensive end, and whether it's another ball handler or just like a really, really prolific play finisher like Lauri Markkanen, I don't see them breaking the ceiling into being an outright strong contender until this issue is addressed. Also, aside from Lauri Markkanen, I have been privately talking to Nick about how or Motown Noah, as you may know him, Pistons fan, that like Michael Porter Jr. low-key makes a lot of sense for them, but apparently the Pistons are like very high, like they care a lot about character, so that's probably not going to happen. The solution, you're just going to have to wait and see what Jaden Ivey can do in year 4, and if that's not enough come trade deadline, I think it would be a massive disappointment and a pretty big mistake if they did not take a big swing. I don't think it should be Anthony Davis, by the way. I cannot fucking believe how prominent that rumor is, given how good Jalen Duren has been this year, given how good Isaiah Stewart has been this year since he's back hitting threes again. I just think that rumor is entirely coming from a place of ignorance for the Pistons' big man rotation this year. Speaking of big man rotations, the biggest issue with the Indiana Pacers is that their center rotation stinks. They're actually similar to Boston here, both in the fact that their center position stinks, but also this is a problem that is fine in the present because they're not good. They're not going to be good. They've dug themselves in such a massive hole this year that even if you want to blame everything on injuries, they ain't making the playoffs starting the season 1-14 or 2-14. Their lack of a center for next year, however, is really concerning. I thought that Jay Huff would be good this year and a great backup next year, but he has been rough so far. could bounce back, could still be a really good backup for them, but he's certainly not a starter. And for the solution, it's the same thing as Boston. You're going to have to either trade for or sign a center. Although, unlike Boston, because the Celtics are in the playoffs right now, or just outside of the playoff picture, they're around the play-in area. The Pacers, on the other hand, they could draft a center in this lottery. Just skimming a couple of mock drafts, it does appear as though the center position is actually really solid in this draft after that top three. Obviously, if you land in the top three, don't draft a fucking center, but if you're anywhere else in that lottery, there appears to be an abundance of center prospects this year. For the Milwaukee Bucks, it is an over-reliance on Giannis. Now, Ryan Rollins has made this issue far less severe, but it still remains a big problem, especially with Giannis out for a month now. I'm honestly worried that this team isn't good enough to win like almost any of the games that they have without him. The solution is a trade. I hate how often that has been the answer here, but it typically is if you do not have the personnel or a rotation adjustment to be made. And I don't think there's a secret bucket off of the bench on this team. That would have been Ryan Rollins already, and that secret is no longer all that secret to people who are outside of Bucks fandom who was already aware. So they need to make a trade for someone who can create but has little trade value, because they don't have the draft capital, they don't have the young players to move. By no means would I move on from Ryan Rollins. I don't think that's worth doing. So overall, you have to trade for someone who can score but isn't worth shit. And for me, like the idea for me has been CJ McCollum. I think CJ McCollum would be the perfect answer. He makes about $30 million. His contract expires this offseason. You could literally just swap Kyle Kuzma and Kevin Porter Jr. and get CJ. And I think the Wizards would literally just take second-round picks for the guy. Like, he really doesn't have that much value because he's like 34 and his numbers in Washington have been For the Miami Heat, honestly, it is really hard to pick one for them because they're just kind of awesome. Top to bottom, the three-point volume is a little bit low, I guess. They're, in spite of the fact that they're shooting some of the most twos in the league, their efficiency is kind of in the middle of the pack there. So like they could be a little bit more efficient inside the arc. Some people would say the issue is Tyler Hero isn't here and they're really good without him, so maybe it's something similar to Trae Young. However, I would say that Tyler Hero is a far better off-the-ball player, so he doesn't necessarily disrupt the way that Miami is approaching offense, the same way that Trae Young would disrupt the flow of the offense for Atlanta. So I think that's not really an issue for them. So I actually can't point to any major flaw here, and that's kind of wild. Eric Spoelstra, Coach of the Year, dude. For the New York Knicks, Karl Anthony Towns has been really awful this year, and he is looking very uncomfortable in the offense. Like, his numbers are not that good. Cat is averaging 21.7 on 43, 32, 88 splits, which is 57% true shooting percentage, which is 1.3% below league average. Last year, he averaged 24.5 points on 52, 42, 83 splits, which is 63% true shooting. The eye test, though, it's even worse. The eye test made me feel like these numbers would be even worse, and I believe they've been a little bit better lately, so that might be why, but he just seems less comfortable in this offense. He's shooting more threes, which I like, but he hasn't been hitting them, and he has looked very awkward anytime he is trying to drive to the basket. I don't know where the disconnect is. But whatever it is, dude, he just seems to not know where he's supposed to be on the floor a lot of the time, and it really mucks up the entire flow of this offense. And I think him figuring it out is the difference between them being, I mean, they're currently already fourth in offensive rating, so the offense has been fucking good. But I think him getting back to his level last year within this new context is the way that they could possibly be the best offense in the entire NBA. Like, my prediction for the Knicks was that they have the capacity to be the best offense in the league. And I think Cat's the difference between that or not. The solution is just to wait it out. Like, obviously you're not trading Cat. I'm sure things will smooth out. A lot of it could also be him sharing the floor with Mitchell Robinson, which has been happening a little bit more towards the start of the year. Not so much lately because I believe he has been injured. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. The Orlando Magic seem to be better without Paolo. The Magic are 4-2 without him, although to be fair, I'm seeing a lot of people point out their record without him, but they're also 5-2 with him in their last 7 games before that. In my Paolo video on this channel, the We Need to Talk About Paolo, I got into the weeds of like his Hornets game. When he played against the Hornets, he was so much better. The way that he was approaching offense was so much better. And then they went on that 5-2 streak of 7 games with him. So I do think this is not that massive of an issue, but the offense does look smoother without him overall. In fact, they're putting up 121.7 points per game in their last 5 games, which is a massive step up from where they were before. Desmond Bane in particular just looks way more comfortable out there without Paolo. He's averaging 21.3 points per game in their last 6 games. He was averaging just 15.5 before that. As for the solution, I think Paolo just needs to change the approach that he has on the offensive end. I think he was on his way towards that already before getting hurt, so I'm actually not overly concerned with this issue, but I don't know. I'm still hesitant on him. It's hard to envision what he looks like perfectly on this roster as of right now. For the Philadelphia 76ers, Joel Embiid is a complete wild card. Overall, this has been a really positive season for Philly, but their ceiling is ultimately decided by Embiid, who has been, I don't know what a good word for him this year has been. I would say different. It's definitely very different. His scoring volume per minute is still stellar. He's averaging like 20 in about 22 minutes, but he is moving very slow. He is not jumping much at all, and he is relying more and more on jump shots. He is shooting 4% less of his shots at the rim compared to his last healthy year, 5% less from floater range, 8% less from 10 to 16 feet. His three-point rate is up to 32.2%. in his last healthy year and right around what his career number is. That's just been 15% of his shot diet. So he has more than doubled his 3-point volume this year. And because of the less interior scoring, his free throw rate is also down by 18%. Also, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if I had to wager a guess, I would say a lot more of his shots inside the arc have been assisted. The fact that he is scoring despite all of this is good. The fact that his points per minute is not that far off from his actual peak is good. But the eye test suggests that he is worse than these numbers. And I don't know how ready he will be come playoff time. Is this just an early season? He's playing 20-something minutes and we'll ramp him up towards the end of the year for the playoffs. That could very well be the case. This is a wait-and-see type situation. For the Toronto Raptors, this is another one like the Heat where I'm it's kind of hard to point to a major weakness right now because they've kind of been great all around. Bench depth could be better, and Brandon Ingram could be hitting his threes better. Jamal Shed, their backup point guard, and Sandro Mamukelashvili have both been awesome this year. However, Grady Dick and especially Ochai Agbaji have not been. Their next best bench pieces is a rookie in Colin Murray Boyles. He's been good, but I don't know if he's ready for big playoff rotation minutes right now. And I'm actually getting higher and higher on this Raptors team to the point where I'm dude, this could be a fucking good-ass playoff team. So I'm looking towards the bottom of their bench and being I don't know how many playoff rotation pieces are actually on that bench. But like I said, they've been shockingly good, so it's kind of hard to find a real issue here when a team is super exceeding your expectations. It is really hard to focus on the limited weaknesses that they may have. So the solution, they could trade for some bench pieces. They own all of their draft picks, and there's also probably a few teams out there who would be willing to take a flyer on Grady Dick, who is in his 3rd year and has at least shown pretty good scoring potential. So, yeah, I think maybe trading Grady Dick for a more reliable veteran player would be the move. For the Washington Wizards, everything. The solution, stop being the Wizards. We are now on to the Western Conference, and I fear that this video is going to be 40 minutes long. For the Denver Nuggets, Cam Johnson fucking sucks right now, and it's been really disappointing. Besides for the Kevin Durant trade, there was not a move that I was higher on than this one. At the time of recording, he's averaging 9.4 points, and he's only taking 3.8 threes per game while shooting 33%. Not only is he missing a ton, he's just not taking that many threes to begin with. I knew he was going to shoot less. Obviously, he's not going to shoot as much as he was on the Nets, but he still averaged like 15 on the Phoenix Suns when they were competitive. He still took like 6 threes per game on those teams. So I don't know. It just felt like he has not been interested in being that aggressive. He's been afraid of overstepping and like messing up what is all working really well otherwise. And Denver hasn't really treated him like a central point of the offense, which I think they should. Not that he needs to be taking more shots than Jokic, Gordon, or Murray, but he needs to at least be kind of close to the amount of shots Aaron Gordon is taking. Like, I think at a minimum, or even just Christian Brown. I don't know. He's been better in his last 4 games. He's averaging 15.5 points. He's shooting 58% on 4.8 threes, but I'm still not happy with that volume. I want him to take like 7 at least 6. But yeah, solution, just wait and see. For the Dallas Mavericks, it is of course point guard play. D'Angelo Russell has been awful, and Brandon Williams has gotten the start, and he was someone who I was really hyped about, someone who I was like, watch out for Brandon Williams. He kind of did some fun stuff last year. He's a really fun player, but he's probably not starter material, and his numbers are fucking awful. He's averaging 13 and 5, but like 30-something% from the field, like 15% from 3, just very bad. So the solution, you could argue just wait for the offseason. However, I think for the sake of Cooper Development's playmaking, I think they should trade for a starting caliber guard sooner rather than later. Obviously, don't do anything crazy, but I think it would be for the best if you have a guy who can set up Cooper better. At least Cooper Flagg's not playing point guard anymore. That's an improvement, and he's been better as a result. But if he was playing with like a for real dimer, that would go a long way. For the Golden State Warriors, I kind of had a mix of 2 issues, which is size and still over relying on Steph now that he is 37 fucking years old. They are at their best when Draymond is at the 5, which kind of sucks. Like, it was one thing when they were like that, but you didn't have to play Draymond at the 5. But now you kind of have to play Draymond at the 5. Al Horford seems washed, like for real. He has been a little better as of late, but he's still not very good. Quentin Post just isn't a starter as much as I do like his game. He's just not very good defensively. And Steph is averaging 28 right now, which is awesome as a fan. I love seeing Steph put up like damn near peak numbers even at the age of 37. But that's not good for the long-term goals of this team. So the solution, they desperately need to trade for a starting 5 who can shoot. I don't know who that is, as that's a type of player who is in really short supply. So I don't know. But for the over-reliance on Steph, I think Jimmy Butler just needs to be more aggressive in the regular season than he's used to. Maybe it's a lot to ask of him because he's also 35 years old, but I don't know. His 20 points per game just doesn't really cut it. Also doesn't help that Jonathan Kuminga kind of was awesome for the first couple of games and hasn't been since. For the Houston Rockets, their biggest issue is the defense has fallen off a little bit. Houston is currently first in offensive rating while being like at the bottom of the league in 3-point attempts, which is really interesting. Their offense, I want to make a video about that at some point, just breaking down how interesting and different their offense has been. But they were 4th in defensive rating last year, and they are 13th thus far. I will still happily take the Kevin Durant trade every time because being first in offense really raises this team's ceiling. But I think they should, at the bare minimum, be in the top 10, and they have not been thus far. A lot of this you can just chalk up to early season variance. I would be shocked if the Rockets did not end up finishing as a top 10 defense, so I wouldn't read into this too much. I think a lot of it is also losing Dillon Brooks, which was supposed to be supplemented by the addition of Dorian Finney-Smith. Brooks, I would say, is a better defender than Doe, but like not by some wide margin. But of course, Dorian has not suited up for the Rockets yet, so we'll have to wait and see. The solution, wait until Dorian comes back, and hopefully things will come together better on that end. For the Los Angeles Clippers, their biggest issue is they're old. Like, holy fuck, they're old. Like, I would just say blow it up, but they don't even have their own first-round pick this year. Solution, stop being the Clippers. For the Los Angeles Lakers, Luka's 3-point shooting. Luka has been unbelievable this year, but man, does his 3-point shooting piss me off. I'm probably going to make a little Rusty video about that. Will probably come out today or Thursday, but he is second in the league in threes attempted per game behind Steph, but he's 158th in three-point percentage. Rudy, leave this silence in, or Desmond, whoever edits this video, leave the silence after that in. Think about that. He's taking 11 threes per game, and there are over 150 players who shoot better on threes than him right now. It's just wild. Luka has been an inconsistent shooter his entire life, so it's not that shocking. But like, the Lakers are only 15th in offensive rating thus far, despite how goddamn great Luka and Austin Reeves have been. Despite DeAndre Ayton being really good, despite Rui Hachimura being really good, despite LeBron being back, although his second game did not go as well as his first game. Like, their offense should be better than it is, given how much everything else is working. Like, I would primarily chalk it up to those dumbass threes more than anything else. The solution, he just needs to stop pulling up like he's Stephen Curry. Like, I hate how basic this solution is for real, but like, he just needs to stop. Stop it. Cut it out, Luka. Stop it. Bad. Or he'll just start hitting them. Whichever it is, it's pissing me off. For the Memphis Grizzlies, Ja Morant is actively declining, and I think he has peaked as a player already. Rudy went into the Word document where I wrote out this video and put a bunch of rants about how it's actually the coach's fault. I don't think the coach has necessarily done things to help this situation, but it is not the coach's fault that Ja just keeps taking way too many jumpers, missing his floaters, and cannot get to the rim. I am of the opinion that he has peaked, and that is kind of bad for this team, given that they have tied so much of this franchise to him. He is like the biggest star the Grizzlies have ever had in terms of notoriety. But no one else in the league is going to want to trade for damaged goods, especially with his PR being in the mud lately. So the solution is waiting it out and hoping he gets better, but it is not looking good lately. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, they do not have any point guard play. Now, we've seen some teams around the league moving away from a lot of point guard play. Obviously, the Miami Heat and Atlanta Hawks, who I mentioned earlier. The Houston Rockets as well. I mean, Amen Thompson is playing point, but he's not really that prolific of a ball handler or playmaker. Reed Shepherd has primarily been a shooter. So, like, we're seeing this trend across the league, and Minnesota has still been a good offense this year. However, I don't know that they're going to be that great in a playoff setting if they do not get a legit point guard. Dante DiVincenzo and Ant are the starting guards, and neither of them are particularly great playmakers. Ant has gotten better, but he is still nowhere near like the point of me wanting him to be heavily the lead ball handler. Like, I like the idea of developing Ant into the point guard, but it's been a couple of years now where they have flirted with that idea, and he has been their lead ball handler this year, and he's averaging 3.5 assists, which is not great. Julius Randle has been taking a big playmaking role as opposed to what he did last year, so that's like an okay supplement to this issue, but I don't think it's an overall solution. Conley is too old for major minutes, and he doesn't really get to the rim like that anymore, and the Rob Dillingham swing is looking more and more like a mistake. So the solution is to trade for a starting caliber point guard. If you want to look like any rebounding team in the league that has a good veteran point guard, I'm sure that they would like to take a swing on Rob Dillingham. And Minnesota has all of their draft picks. However, almost all of them are tied up in some other trade. So like, it gets iffy on whether or not those can be traded. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. But it appears that they have at least some draft capital they can move. And I think a really good point guard would just unlock so much for that team. I did mention the possibility of a Kyrie Irving trade for them. And while Kyrie is not all that great of a playmaker, if it is either Kyrie or Ant who is dribbling the ball at all times, at the very least, those guys are very good shot creators. So, you know, you wouldn't have Dante DiVincenzo doing ball handling, or Conley and Dillingham, who are just not that. Like, the ball handling as a whole would be good. The scoring on ball would be good, even if the playmaking between your top two guards leaves room to be desired. For the New Orleans Pelicans, this is a similar issue to the Charlotte Hornets. However, it is with a player who is even more untradeable. They are chained to Zion. honestly, I think New Orleans has a lot more positive going on than people have been giving them credit for, and I completely understand why, given that they traded their fucking draft pick for this year and they're terrible. However, Derek Queen might not have been worth trading this year's first round pick for, but at the very least, he's really good. At the very least, it was a buy-in on a guy who was good. It would be a disaster if Derek Queen was bad, but I genuinely think he has some all-star upside based on the limited sample we have seen from him thus far. Jeremiah Fears has also been really good as a rookie. His playmaking leaves room to be desired, but he already looks like a very good scorer at the guard position. And Trey Murphy III is still just 25 years old. But they got this Zion guy, who is in the best shape of his career, but he's been pretty subpar so far this season. He is shooting 8% worse from two than his career average. He's only putting up 21 points, and he has still missed 10 of their 17 games. So maybe he will go right back to like guy who was bordering on top 10 after he warms up a little bit more, but I'm not feeling optimistic about it, and a lot of it does appear that, like, he probably got too skinny. Like, Zion, we didn't want you to be fat, but we didn't want you to be a twig neither. That's not the solution. You're a power player, and it seems like he's lost a lot of his power. So for the solution, maybe you can find someone who would trade for him, but I honestly doubt it. At the very least, not in a trade where you wouldn't have to yourself give up assets to get off of that contract. So maybe a buyout, honestly. There are also contract incentives and stuff, and like some stuff that they can take out because it's just a very complicated contract. So I don't know exactly the details there, but I would love to see the young guys on this roster just thrive without this shadow looming over them. For the Oklahoma City Thunder, LO fucking L. OKC does not need me giving them any pointers to get them. They're 17-1 at the time of recording. Whatever. The Phoenix Suns. Dillon Brooks is the second option right now. Another case of a team being better than expected, so it feels weird to point out weaknesses, but right now, Dillon Brooks is simply shooting too much. I would say that Jalen Green's absence is a good excuse, but honestly, Grayson Allen's been really good this year. Colin Gillespie has been really good this year. I'd rather see Mark Williams get a little bit more usage, more pick and roll, more post-ups. Like, I just think there are better answers to their shot creation issues right now than to give the ball to Dillon Brooks. Like, I would much rather a more spread out approach beyond Devin Booker than Dillon damn near taking the same amount of shots. To be fair, he's been relatively efficient thus far, but his dumb mid-range attempts really take away from my enjoyment of this team. So the solution, Dillon needs to stop, and overall, the Suns need to take a more egalitarian approach to the offense. Like I said, hard to knock the Suns for anything right now because most people did not expect them to be a playoff team, but now that they're looking more and more like they can be, I do think that Dillon taking too many shots would be the ceiling capper there. For the Portland Trailblazers, Toumani Camara fell off on the defensive end of the floor. The Blazers were expected to be a subpar offense this year, and they are. However, they were expected to be a great defense this year because they had a lot of moments last year of being a really good defense. But their best defender, Toumani, has been kind of awful on that end, at least relative to his standards. I wouldn't say he's an outright negative defender, but he is not the overwhelming positive that he was before. Like last year, he was locking up everyone in front of him across multiple positions, multiple play styles. Like this was a guy that you could throw on Shea or Zion. But this year, that's just not happening. The eye test says it and the advanced stats say it. Currently, teams are 4.5 points better on offense with him on the floor, which for a guy who had the defensive pedigree that he had is really disappointing. So the solution is he just needs to wake the fuck up. I don't know what's going on there. Haven't really caught a vibe for why that is, but it's bad. For the Sacramento Kings, everything is a weakness. The solution is burn it down and move to Seattle. For the San Antonio Spurs, I would say defense without Wemby. It is a little bit better than it has been in the past. However, opponents are still 9.2 points better offensively without Wemby. They don't have any really strong defensive guys aside from Stephon Castle and Carter Bryant. Castle can only do so much as a guard, and Carter's offense is keeping him off of the floor. Jeremy Sohan should theoretically help, but I haven't really been impressed from what I've seen on him on D this year. He's also playing like the lowest minutes he has in quite a while, which I think is for the better, but maybe he will have more of an impact. Luke Cornett is the 5 in place of Wemby right now, and he is a solid defensive player, but he's not really good enough to make up for a mediocre perimeter defense. Like, truly, Castle is the only guy who is really bothering people on the perimeter, and he still has like young player mistakes in him that he does every once in a while, so he's not even perfect on that end by any means. Like, Spurs opponents have a 117.8 offensive rating without Wemby, which would tie them for 11th best offense. So basically they'd be the 11th worst defense without Wemby. Like I said, that is an improvement because the last like 2 years, they were the worst defense without him and the best with him. But I would like to see, I would like the perimeter defense to pick it up a little bit, especially in his absence. For the Utah Jazz, this roster just kind of stinks, despite being competitive because of Lauri Markkanen having an explosive start to the season. I would personally like to just see them trade him. I've gotten some pushback from that from Jazz fans, and like, I get it. He's a cool player, but I'm also like, I don't know what the fuck the solution is then. What are we doing here? Because you're just going to not get a top draft pick. You're going to be an okay offense and a terrible defense. Bryce Sensabaugh is good. Their point guard rotation, Keyshawn George and Isaiah Collier. I don't know about Isaiah, but Keyshawn's good. I do feel like Keyshawn could maybe dial back his usage and shot selection a little bit, but one way or the other, I don't know. It just very much reads to me like Lowry's 28. What's the plan? What's the plan? I just don't get it. I really don't. I've weirdly watched so many fucking Jazz games this year, which is probably why I am so animated about this right now. Here, look at this shit. This is my watched games this year. Utah is tied for 3rd place with the Spurs, Sixers, and Mavericks as my 3rd most watched teams. I'm watching too many Jazz games. Trade Lowry, please, so I could just never watch you again. But Lowry's so fun. I want to keep watching. Also, just coincidentally, there's been a bunch of big games against the Jazz this year. But yeah, that's it. Let me know what you think. I'm sure there are some weaknesses that were potentially bigger issues, especially from the perspective of fans of these teams. Please bear in mind, give me the grace of the fact that I am trying to cover all 30 teams in this league, and it's not quite the same as hyper-focusing on whatever your favorite team is. But yeah, that is it. Let me know if you got anything wrong, respectfully, please, but that is it. Goodbye.